I'd like to introduce to you guys Lora Thorson, who I think is one of the rising talents in the firearms industry. And the reason I say that is she's a singular voice, and it's not because she's young or she's female, but she's actually started to occupy a space that's well needed. And she's finding what high-level performers need to not only succeed, but to thrive and learn how to overcome their struggles and their context. And she's done a wonderful job in putting a show together that allows people to see this side of her. She's an accomplished firearms instructor. She's a fitness, what would we call you? A fitness connoisseur now. I think you're at that point where you're really starting to engage in how to improve not only your physical fitness, but your mental fitness. And you love to shoot. You love your family. You love people around you. And I find you to be a singularly unique voice. And I think unique voices need a platform to be heard. It's a great honor to have and spend time with you and to be your friend and to have the trust that you put in me to interview in this situation.
Wow. Thank you.
How's that for an intro? See? Yep. It feels weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, very.
I think this is good though, right?
It's even worse when you have to introduce yourself, I think. You've talked about that.
I think it's, this is a good place too, where you remember what it's like to be on the other side of this.
Right.
And we both get to see that in this moment. The changing of roles and changing of positions, changing of perspective is incredibly important for growth. So,
new level of uncomfortable unlocked.
Yeah. I feel for you, my friend. I feel for you.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, why don't we get to work?
Okay.
As always, it's interesting, and we're going to talk about this in the show, I know, about the struggle. And the struggle to get started is always real. No matter how much you want to do something right now, there's a procrastination, there's a struggle going on because your brain's ramping up and it's getting ready to do it. And we find that continuing in life. And one of the great things that human beings really need to have is a sense of purpose. It allows us to overcome this inability, this imposter syndrome, this struggle to get started. And when we find our purpose, it's usually bigger and larger than we are. Therefore, we forget how little we are and how important the purpose is. So my first question to you is, what is your purpose? I know it's changed. I know it's evolved. And I hope you'll talk about how it has changed over time and with your experience. But I think it's very interesting. You found a unique purpose. So let's talk about that first.
Well, I think it would be important to preface what I'm going to say during the interview with a lot of my journey, especially recently, has been due to spiritual growth on my part. And so what I will talk about will be my honest experience with God. And I know that's not everyone's experience. And I respect that. I would just hope that if what I say lands a little bit uncomfortable to you, that you'll be open-minded enough to hear the message rather than words that might trigger you for some reason. The reason I say that is because there have been times previous to me becoming a believer where I would hear someone start to talk about Jesus or God, and I would just honestly be annoyed. I would just roll my eyes and I would just think, oh my gosh, not again. Here we go. Someone preaching, and then I found it to be very uncomfortable and annoying. And it was hard for me to hear the message behind that because of the package it was wrapped in, if that makes sense. I felt, I've been struggling with this interview for that reason. Speaking openly about my faith is hard for me. My faith is not always widely accepted or viewed in the same way that I view it. So my purpose in all of this is just to try to reach people through my experience and that common humanness that we all experience. And so speaking of my purpose, then I would say now I've found more clarity. My purpose revolves around a belief that I used to have, which was that this vulnerableness that I possess, this humanness that I possess, was a curse instead of a blessing. And I believed that for a really long time because that's what the world told me. The people around me, in not so many words, told me that what I was experiencing and feeling and my portrayal of that into the world made them feel uncomfortable. And so that was tamped down for a very long time. And I hated that about myself for a really long time. And now I have learned that that is a blessing for other people because I've now experienced, even recently, people come up to me and thank me for showing emotion, because in some way it's allowed them permission or inspiration to do the same. I'm not sure, but that floored me because that's been a part of me forever. So I think that's part of my purpose, is to bravely stand in who God made me to be and do that without fear, do that with courage, even when it feels shaky, and in order to somehow maybe inspire others to do the same.
It's funny how often the word fear comes up when we talk about, spiritual growth, mental growth, physical growth. What got you to the point where you could face your fears? It's never easy, I know, and you're not without fear.
Right.
You wouldn't want to be that way, but what got you to the point where it was worth it?
I think that there have been many times in my life where I've really felt alone. And my faith now has proven to me that I'm not. And not just not alone in that God is with me, but not alone in that other people experience the exact same feelings and thoughts. When I remember that and I know I'm not alone, then I don't buy into the lies anymore because I know the truth. So that helps me.
We all suffer inside our own heads, don't we?
Oh, yeah, that's a battleground.
I think that's why your particular brand of courage right now is so important. I can't tell you, I just imagine people listening are going to resonate with that. The fear of being rejected by the group, but the other sense of loneliness that we have, and when you found a purpose, this allows you to grow, and allows you to face those things. But it's so hard. It's so much easier to be the opposite, isn't it?
Oh,
but it's so painful in the end.
Yeah. But there's a cost for that.
Yes.
There's a cost for staying comfortable.
What do you think the ultimate cost for being comfortable is?
I think it's almost in some ways betraying the gifts that God gave you, that you should be showing into the world, because the world needs us. The world needs me. The world needs you. Everyone has something so unique to bring. And I see people holding themselves back to such degrees because of fear. But I see deep inside those people, I want to say I see what God sees, but I see that potential. I see that spark and that fire and that passion hidden underneath all of that doubt and shame and fear. And it makes my heart sad sometimes to see that, but that's the cost for hiding.
I know as a coach, I've seen great lights extinguished for no reason, and that seems to be the biggest waste I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That sheltering of what you could be, what you really are, what you should be is incredibly difficult. And the avoidance of feeling uncomfortable with it is such a small portion of this,
Yeah.
But if warriors like you and I don't talk about it and don't show people how hard it genuinely is, how will people know to move forward? It's so easy to desensitize yourself and just try to be comfortable. But we know the end result of that is people are unhappy, discontented. So I congratulate you on finding purpose.
It's a really gratifying thing.
Yeah.
It is so worth it.
It is, what we're talking about today is the intrinsic motivators of human beings. And that's how I frame my questions. What does motivate us? What allows us to get up and overcome the hard days?
Yeah.
The easy days are easy for a reason, right? This is one of the hard days, and you're doing a fantastic job. It's to watch you and to feel the deep well of empathy and love. That's incredible, and it's so easy to let that go and to be cynical and
make excuses. Yeah.
So well done on the first question.
That was a big question, Brian Hill. That is maybe one of the biggest questions. I'm like, how can you lead with that? But
how can you not, though?
I know, right? I know. Yeah.
It's always been interesting to me. We talk about imposter syndrome a lot in this industry because people often have to teach without an apprenticeship phase. So they don't really get enough growth. Sometimes they just have to do the job. Sometimes you're called to do the thing. Yeah. And you never feel like you're quite ready for it, no matter who you are. And one of the ways to get around the imposter syndrome is to have purpose. It's not you.
Right.
You're
it's
not
bigger
doing
than
it
you.
for you.
Yeah.
You're doing it for others. You're in service.
That's exactly right.
And I've always found Jesus to be one of the greatest teachers. He didn't teach those who were worthy.
Yeah.
He went to all the places where everybody said he shouldn't go.
Yeah.
And he was passionate.
And he met people where they are.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's a big insight. That's a big difference. And that's how you know you're in the right place, because you'll feel it. And we've talked about it when you're teaching. It's as something bigger than you is happening.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful.
I think that's our limited connections.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us into our next question.
You're such a good interviewer, Brian.
Well, it's easy, because I respect and love and care about you, and I know where you're going, and we're doing something important. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And I know you can too.
Yeah.
And the easy work is always easy. I could talk about pistols all day long, but it's easy.
Right.
This is the stuff that matters. And if you don't know who you are, how are you going to win? The fight that's coming for you every day. So my next question is, I have to be careful because this language sometimes gets confused with people, but I ask you what you're passionate about in teaching and training in life. But I also want to ask what are the feelings associated with it? Sometimes when we use the word passionate, it's like a Harlequin romance novel. We think that's passion, but that's not truly what it is. Passion is the fuel that gets us up, the fuel that gets us through. And we are emotional creatures, as much as we want to be logical, the emotions drive us, So my question is, what are you passionate about teaching and life and training? And what does that feel like? What does real passion feel like when you're doing these things?
Real passion feels like, fulfillment. It feels, there's a filling up. To me, when I think about passion, I think about substance. When there's something of real substance, because I'm often disappointed with the shallowness that I see. I'm not saying there's not a time and place for certain things. There always is in life. I get that. But I get excited when I can dig really deep and I can see people for who they really are. And when they say something, I can see past what they're saying to what they really mean. I struggle with that too. That's one of my, I wouldn't know. I don't even really know if it's true, honestly, but at least one of the stories I tell myself is that I have a hard time articulating what I really mean. And I don't think that's actually true. I think sometimes other thoughts get in the way because I ping pong sometimes. But what makes me passionate is the truth. What makes me passionate is digging, seeking, finding the true essence of people. That makes me excited. I oftentimes describe it as being like a Jack Russell Terrier digging in a hole after a gopher or something. Like there is that drive in me that, just like a Jack Russell, that's just part of how God made that particular animal, right? And that's how God made me. And so that's where the passion comes, is digging and finding new things, learning new things, exploring new things, not just about myself, but about other people. And then part of the process of revealing that to them is also exciting to me. And I happen to do that as a firearms instructor, which sounds really odd to some people, I think. But I haven't found yet in a class that through somehow the process of shooting a gun, a person doesn't reveal who they really are. They might be hiding it, but it's there. Whenever I'm very observant about that, and I think that's my strong intuition that feeds that. When I really tap into that and I really pay attention in a way that's not shallow, but in a way that's more deeply felt and seen, then I'm able to help that person in a way that's actually meaningful to them and not just telling them the next step to do.
Do you often feel like you're stripping things away instead of teaching things?
Yeah.
Because you talked about your own filter, and I think everybody has filters, and that's a comparison whether I should or shouldn't do something. When you have integrity, you trust your intuition, and you're genuine, and we start seeing who the real person is. So if we take something like firearms, is that a chance for us to reveal a very small portion of how the person really acts and thinks?
Yeah, and I think that in a way, how I show up with that person in some way again, helps them in some way to reveal that about themselves. And it's not anything that's spoken necessarily. It's just that somehow they trust me and they know that I'm their advocate, just like you're an advocate for people. I think people sense that, they know that, and that allows them, to explore things in a different way without their guard being up and without openness to new information.
Is your passion calm?
Calm?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a good question. I know. That's a hard one, isn't it?
At times it can be when needed. There's times where that's needed. There can be a passionate calmness, which sounds like an oxymoron, but there can be. I don't think that it ever really truly goes away. So I think maybe it's an ebb and flow type situation where there's times where I'm just so fired up that I can't hold it back, like when I do the happy dance on the line, like there's just so much in me that has to come out physically. Right. But I can still be passionate and be calm. Yeah, that's needed.
Does it ever feel like a hurricane? No.
A little bit. I think it doesn't feel uncontrollable in a bad way. It's a release more than anything. It's like a wave and a release. And I've learned to not hold that back. I've learned to embrace that more now instead of looking at it and judging it, right? Or worrying about what other people think of my reaction to that passion or how I express it. I've found that more often than not, other people are inspired by it. They're excited by it. They love seeing it. And that's encouraging for me because again, I haven't been good at, but I've tried to be good at holding it back for years, but I haven't been good at it at all.
I don't think you can,
No, nor should I be.
And it's funny. People feel very guilty about showing joy sometimes.
Yeah.
They'll really criticize themselves, but joy is very difficult and hard, And you talked about your happy dance, that's joy establishing itself.
Yeah.
It's energy, isn't it?
It's energy. Yeah. And I think the reason I held that back in the past was because I was afraid that it would make other people uncomfortable. I was more worried about other people than I was myself. I don't feel like I need to do that anymore. Good.
Language is clunky with this stuff, isn't it? It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have good words for this sometimes. And it's funny, we'd all rather be miserable together. Right?
Yeah.
When it comes to joy. So I think that's a good way I've seen the joy of your learning and the joy of your teaching, and I think that's people have to know that that's where the real fulfillment is.
Yeah.
That's how the purpose fulfills.
And I want that for other people. I want that for other people. That's a really strong desire of mine. The thing is like, you can't change other people. You can't get them to a place they don't want to go. You can't make them see something they don't want to see. So the only thing I can do is be a good example. That's the conclusion I've come to, at least as of late. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what I'm trying to do. The last thing I want to do is talk on my show about how important XYZ is and be a complete hypocrite behind the scenes. That would just feel so wrong to me. So I think that's probably part of my motivation too, is living up to, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And the walk is not easy. It's not easy at all.
Nope.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and consider, if you're able, to become a paid subscriber on defenders-live.com. Your support is the only way I'm able to continue doing this labor of love. And also, if you're looking for exceptional firearms and self-defense training, go to defenders-usa.com and look at the calendar to see what's coming to your area this year. Hey guys, I would like to invite you to something new that I'm offering. I am going to be hosting a live Zoom call once a month for my paid subscribers. I really want to offer something special, something valuable, and something with a personal touch to you every month. And this is my way of helping you guys on your journey. And what you can expect is a variety of different topics, all within 4 buckets that I talk about on Defenders Live, which are health and well-being, mental and emotional health, spiritual fitness, and self-defense. So once a month, I am going to be presenting some questions to you. During that Zoom call, we're going to have a conversation live, and there's a good chance that the founder of Defenders USA, Adam Winch, might be on that call as well. So I invite you to join me on the Defenders Live community. As a paid subscriber, you will be getting emails about these once a month. You can sign up for this by going to defenders-live.com and becoming a paid subscriber. I hope to be talking to you soon and seeing you in the live Zoom calls. Thank you so much for your support of Defenders Live.
Well, what are you seeking mastery in? And when I use the term mastery, I mean anything. You know, I don't think you do it one thing at a time anyway. So what are you seeking mastery in?
Well, I think in my mind, the idea of mastery is unattainable. At least it feels that way to me right now. And I think that if I ever really mastered something, it wouldn't be interesting to me anymore anyway. So the things that I seek to master right now are multifaceted. It's all the things. Again, I think that's part of who I am, and I can't, I would be lying if I said it was just one thing or another. I mean, so many things interest me. So for me, seeking understanding in physical fitness is a big thing for me. But I want to say the reason for that isn't so that I'm jacked. The reason for that is because I've found another, it's been a process for me of revealing who I am to myself. It's been a real honest journey that I find really fulfilling because nobody else is around me when I'm working out. It's just me. I think that scares some people, but I embrace that time. And, an example of seeking that mastery in physical fitness for me has been like the clean has been my nemesis, and rope climbs have been my nemesis. I have more than one. But what I found is that showing up even when you don't feel competent in something, which is most of the things I do, especially in physical fitness, because I don't see myself naturally good at it. But the process of showing it up and doing it messy, the process of showing up and admitting, I don't understand this, I don't really know how to do this, but I'm going to try. I'm going to be willing to try. And I'm going to fail, and it's going to suck, and it's going to feel gross and icky, like all the things in your gut that are just like, again, the voices in your head that say, who do you think you are? You've never done this before. You can't do this. And then setting those aside and being like, well, actually, I'm here, and I'm open, and I'm willing, and I'm not perfect, and I'm just going to try. The magic is that if you just keep showing up with that humbleness every single day, then one day you're going to land that clean, or you're going to climb that rope almost effortlessly. And you're going to go, what? How did that happen? Because it's such a minute, such a small change every single day that you don't see, you don't recognize. And then when it shows up, I just feel like, wow, I've just proven that if I just, now that's what putting in the work actually is, Brian. I think people think putting in the work every day means like, giving yourself 10 lashes and like running uphill both ways, all that stuff. Like, that's not it. The work is not always like this grinding, intense thing. Sometimes it's a quiet, humble thing. You're like, here I am. I'm going to show up and do my best today. I'm going to do a little bit today. And over time that adds up, like in big ways. And then a year from now, for me, a year from when I started, I've grown in ways, not physically is like the byproduct of it. Emotionally, mental strength, that's what I've learned in that showing up process. That's the true work. It's not the lift the heavy thing. That's like the conduit for the real work for me. And that's part of the physical. Then the mental and emotional comes along with that. In fact, I would say it might even be a bigger component than the physical. That's why I say the physical is a byproduct. And then for me, the spiritual mastery, which again is impossible. There's no such thing for me, I don't think, ever in this lifetime, is this, again, showing up with discipline, with humbleness, realizing I don't know what I don't know, but I'm willing. I want to learn. There's so much I don't know. And I'm not even going to pretend to. All I have is my personal experience, and but I'm excited to share that with others, because how I thought this might go and how it actually went are completely different. And it's messy. You know, it's not, mastery to anything isn't linear. It's messy. It is painful. It is unpredictable. It's yeah, like an example would be yesterday when I realized this interview was coming up. I noticed that I went into freeze mode. I mean, almost to the point where I stopped breathing. I think I held my breath for a period of time when the reality of it hit me. And instead of allowing myself to spiral into a default pattern that I used to do, I stopped and noticed it for what it was. And I went, wow, you're really having a response to that fear, you know? And I paid attention to what was I saying to myself in that moment? What were those voices saying? And then asked myself, is that true? Mostly it wasn't true. I reached out to a couple friends who know me really well. And that was needed, because others see you differently than you see yourself. And I let it sort of derail me for a while. I didn't go do my normal workout at my normal time. And then towards the end of the day, after I'd done a lot of other kinds of work, but not physical fitness work, it was late in the evening and I had a choice. Am I going to show up? There's still time. There's still time to show up. Oh God, it was the last thing I wanted to do though. I was so tired, exhausted emotionally and mentally. And I hadn't eaten very well. I was having trouble. I've had trouble the last 2 days just eating because this has been such a big deal to me. And I did it anyway.
Well, that leads us to our next question.
Perfect.
You know, it's perfect, because now we've done the first three, which is purpose and passion and mastery. And then is the next motivator is autonomy. How do you get yourself to do these things? You know, you've eloquently talked about the struggle.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
How do you seek that self-improvement? How do you get started? Is it okay to procrastinate like you did?
Yeah.
You know, why is it messy?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that as much as this sounds like me doing this all by myself, that's not the case. I can't do this by myself. I have proven that I've proven that over and over throughout my life, which is probably why I have struggled so much with it, because I've always, prior to this, had the belief that you got to just suck it up and do it yourself, you know? And there are times where you do, but asking for help is really important. And it, for me, is incredibly difficult.
Why is it so difficult?
Most of my growing up showed me or implanted the idea that you're on your own. You don't really have a choice. You got to figure it out yourself. Nobody's going to come for you. Nobody's going to save you. Nobody's going to even want to help you. You know, like the idea, the belief that you're not worthy of that. You're not good enough for somebody to come. Nobody's coming.
What helped you see through that falsehood?
I think, again, learning through my faith now that I'm not alone was helpful. I believe the people that I surround myself with mostly show me God's love. God is seen through people. Love is seen through people. And I've had too many experiences over the last few years where people have shown up for me and in big ways and show me love in ways I didn't even think I deserved. And so I think, well, that can't be true then. I've been proven wrong, basically. Yeah. And that's powerful. But so, yeah, I consider a team of people behind me, like an army of people behind me now. I have the support of my husband, of my kids. I have mentors like you and Adam who see things in me I don't see in myself, who continually challenge me, which is needed, challenging my old, patterns, my old thoughts. Is that really true? I have friends that I just referred to who've shown me love that I almost don't know what to do with all the love. Like, it's so weird. Mm-hmm. And at first it was really uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do with that. So that's needed.
It's funny that it's an old Bible quote too, but the truth shall set you free. And the problem is most of us don't want to look at it. It's not that it's not available to us. We just don't want to see the truth, even though the world continually proves our falsehoods to be lies.
Right.
Because, as we talked about, it's more comfortable to suffer alone sometimes. And
yeah, it is sometimes. Yeah, because I didn't want to be a burden to other people. That was my big thing. Yeah. So I just suffered alone. And
we're talking about enriching each other, aren't we? Instead of being burdens.
Yeah.
That's a huge pattern override. That's just a wonderful bit of progress. Scary too, I know.
Yeah, I still struggle with it. I still struggle with it. I mean, what I've noticed is the more that I've explored, I call them the deep, dark caves. The more I explore the deep, dark caves and shed light in those areas, the more that the voices, I call them the voices, weaken, which are the lies. The lies weaken. They're still there, but I don't feel like I have to listen to them anymore because they aren't me. So it's kind of cool.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
You're doing, such incredible hard work. And it's funny though, the more you react to things now, the more you need to do it.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
Yes. So if you're ever wondering what's the next step in my growth, it's the thing that scares you. It's the thing you don't want to face. That's the thing. That's the next thing. And for me, the thought of the thing, whatever it was that scared me, was way bigger than it actually was in reality. Still scary, still hard, still really uncomfortable. But once that light was shed on it, somehow that light dissipates it in a way that makes me see the truth, see what it really is. And the more I do that, that's the process of being uncomfortable. But the more that I do that, the more confidence I have that I can keep doing that. And that was another thing I wanted to say, is that through this self-improvement, self-discipline arena, one of the biggest things I've learned is whether it's, now I'm going to use this in a physical fitness term, like showing up for your workout or whatever, but this is showing up for anything that you're dreading, that you're procrastinating about. For me, if I say to myself, Lora, go put your shoes on, just start there. Just go put your shoes on, get dressed. That's not hard, right? And it starts that tiny little snowball of, okay, I can do that. Because for me, I would get overwhelmed by the mountain. I would be looking at the mountain and going, I can't do that. I don't have that in me today. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed. And then say or justify or think of all the ways that I can't do that or why I can't do that or excuses. And now it's put your shoes on. You've got work to do. You have a mission here. There's a real sense of mission for me. And it starts with putting my shoes on.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's insightful.
It's helped me so much.
Get to work.
Yeah. Just start. I feel like that's so hard for some people.
Well, you're following the path really well, and we've gotten through 4 of these. And the final one is curiosity. When you get to the point where you're courageous, you become more curious. And that's what you start feeling. So, and this is a lighter question than what we just went through, but what are you curious about?
Brian, it might be easier to ask what I'm not curious about.
I like that answer.
Yeah. That's a hard question for me to answer because
Like in teaching, what are you curious about? Or interviewing, you know? What is something that strikes you that you see over and over that maybe needs Laura's attention?
Well, I am really curious about vulnerability. It's an animal that is not, it's like the curiosity is like an elk in the mountains. Like you're like, did I just see that? Oh, wait. It's like your heart just stops for a second. It's this like intangible thing, like, wow, look at that. Because it's so rare, you know? True vulnerability is so rare. For me anyway, I don't see a lot of it in our everyday social media and, living our lives. And all I see are walls and facades and how I want to be in the world, what I want people to know and see about me, and hiding all the things that I don't think are, the parts of me that scare me or that might scare off others, perhaps, and so I'm curious whenever I see that in people, or you just see a little tiny bit of that, because usually it comes in small doses. That's, to me, that's a door opening.
Do you think that we have a problem with vulnerability because we try to avoid failure constantly?
I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of my path has been avoiding failure most of my life. My path, this is really good for people to hear. I suffered from perfectionism. I still struggle with it. Perfectionism is a nasty thing. I used to wear it like a badge of honor. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a nasty thing that can sabotage you in ways you don't realize. Somebody told me recently that God has you on a mission, Lora, and you don't have to be perfect. He knows you're not perfect. You just have to be willing. And that really strikes me, because I'm always willing, but
I think perfection is the inability to learn, though, because learning comes from failure.
Yes.
It always will.
Yes.
And that's, and it kills our curiosity too. That's the real problem with perfection. If it just exists, and it is, and therefore it has to be, if you're avoiding failure, you're avoiding learning.
If you're avoiding failure, you're playing it too safe.
Yeah.
You're playing it safe. You're playing life safe. And I don't think life's meant to be lived that way. Not fully lived.
You're a risk taker?
I don't think, I think I'm working on that. How about that? I don't think my nature has been to be a risk taker necessarily. It's funny because I think some people view me that way because I'm doing things that they couldn't imagine doing themselves. But the only reason I'm able to do any of this is because I put my shoes on and I showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I showed up for my first podcast, messy and imperfect and not having a clue what I was doing. I showed up the first day to gun training, my very first gun class, no clue what I was doing. Right? I mean, we all start somewhere, but the thing is, you have to start. You have to start. You can't go on a journey if you don't begin the journey. So
I'm going to say that to myself. I got to go put my shoes on. I like it.
Yeah.
It's simple. Take the first step.
Yeah.
All right. The question I've been waiting to answer you, this not an intrinsic motivator, but I've seen another interviewer do this, and I think it's a brilliant question. And, I've seen it over and over that, how you gauge interest in people is you ask them questions that they're interested in answering. So my one question to you is, what is one question you would enjoy answering?
That's hard for me to know.
So what do you find joy in?
I think that I find joy in somehow revealing to other people that they're okay, that they can do this too. Like you've said before, you don't have to be special to be great. And it's so true. I'm not special. I'm very ordinary. I'm very flawed. And I find joy in showing that to people in different ways, because maybe the joy I really find is seeing people blossom into who God really made them to be, or stepping into that and finding their own purpose. That brings me joy. Like, you want to talk about fired up, like that. That's where it's at for me. And so I think, how can I help people do that?
Then let me ask you this question. How can an instructor do that with their students? We know it's not technical development. How do we get to that point of, people often say, oh, I like to see the light bulb go on and things like that. But I think
Yeah,
it's a small fraction of what's really happening.
right.
What's something that you do that allows you to make that connection and let somebody see themselves better?
It's hard to put a finger on, because
Hmm.
I feel like God works through me in those moments, and I become sort of, in a sense, a conduit, like a messenger, if you will. I don't feel like it's something that I consciously think about in the moment. Obviously, I must have thoughts, but so
You
let me
trust
try to,
yourself when you do it?
yeah, I embrace it fully. Let me try to think of something more concrete to be helpful to people. I think the first step in that process for me was really trying to relax and take the focus off of myself in the, how do I look when I say this? What's the next thing I need to teach? And paying more close attention, being really observant of what's going on, what's really going on here. I don't think everyone can do that. Maybe that can be learned. For me, it comes pretty natural, I think.
Did you ever have to work with things that didn't speak language, like horses, and you had to
Yeah,
pay close attention to them?
yeah.
So do you think it was natural and maybe possibly a learned behavior?
Could be.
The reason I ask that is we often have a lot of patterns in our life that we don't recognize.
Yeah,
We have horses too. And in order to be good with horses, you have to be honest. The horse has to know what you want. You have to be honest with the way, and you can't use words. You can talk, but they don't
yeah.
really care about the words. They care about the actions. And then I hear from you over and over, and we talked about it the other day, how you're starting to see the bigger pattern,
Mm,
that it reflects whether you're doing physical fitness or you're doing spiritual growth or you're
yeah,
teaching someone, that
yeah,
the pattern is ultimately the same because everything that we teach is to human beings. And
yeah,
we've seen these patterns over and over. And if we trust ourselves to do the right thing and put the other person's success forward,
yeah,
we're there.
yeah. And we don't, I want to caution some people, because I've done this in the past too. I don't think we get people where they need to be by having an agenda for them and then micromanaging them into that agenda. That is not helping people. It's really not. It's the meeting them where they are and listening more than speaking. Listening is the key component. And when I say listening, I listen for God's voice. I know what God's voice sounds like. But I also listen to what people are saying to me, and again, the underlying meaning of what they're really saying. And that doesn't mean that I'm like super philosophical or that I'm highly intellectual and that I'm so smart that I understand what people really mean. It's not an intellectual thing at all. It is a human relationship with another human who's experienced things that you've experienced, and seeing that pain in them, seeing that hurt in them, seeing that struggle in them, identifying that in yourself, and saying to that person, I'm here. You're not alone. That's what it is. That's what it is.
I believe it was Morgan Freeman, but I could be wrong. And he made this analogy and he said, God is not a gumball machine.
No,
You don't put a quarter in and get gumballs.
no,
You
no.
sit and listen, and
Right.
that's what you just said, that for you, prayer is listening, for you, teaching is listening.
Yeah.
And, living your right life is listening to what's happening. And I think
Yeah.
that's profoundly different than most of the industry's teaching. Here's your curriculum, here's your technique, here's how you do it,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons I honor you. I support you. I call you a friend because I watch you do this with people, and I think it's a brilliant and wonderful thing. And to hear the words come out of your mouth is a particular honor. And I think, as hard as that question was to answer, you just did it wonderfully. And now you're probably not sure what you said, right? Because
Not
you spoke from the
exactly.
heart,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the harder thing to do sometimes. Having a glib answer is easy, but
Right.
paying attention and meeting the person where they were and listening is what you just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for that gift.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you've helped me see that too. I've watched you do the same thing in a class, and you know it when you see it.
Hmm.
You feel it. So that's powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah, That's good work, as they say.
Hmm. And I think that's what we've done now is good work.
Yeah. I'm really relieved that I did this. I feel like the timing of it was right. Honestly, this has been one of my biggest fears for a long time. I don't know for sure what I was even afraid of, but I just really hope that other people not just hear what we're talking about, but really, really explore it for themselves, and try to understand it and live it.
You were very courageous to do this. It's hard.
It
Always
is
will
hard.
be.
Yeah.
It's always will be, but it was a great deal of courage, and it required most of the work you did to get to this point. Nobody will get to see.
That's okay. Yeah.
And there was plateaus and there were setbacks.
Yeah.
And none of it was linear. And
No.
You just had to do the work. And so we're all going to put our shoes on and get to work according to Lora from now on. Take that first step.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
It was my honor and my pleasure. And thank you to your community for letting me step in and do this, because everybody needs to know Lora well. She's a good human being, as many of you are. And oftentimes a person does a job and nobody really knows how good they are at their job, including the person. And this was our chance to see what makes Lora tick. How did she get here? And as we all know, it's kind of a mess.
It's a mess.
But that's where the good work is. And as I tell people, I can never offer you happiness, but I can offer you contentment, because that's what we really require, is that we've done something difficult and painful. But at the end of this, we both feel very content that we put our best effort forward, and we probably stumbled a couple times, but we're okay with that, because we're not perfect vessels.
Yep. Well said.